and it is something that is increasing. A few factors that is causing it to increase is a decline in marriage or those getting married later on in life, increased divorce rates, the death of a spouse, or children being conceived outside of the marital covenant. Last year, the United States Census Bureau said that 4 out of 11 million single-parent families with minor children had homes in the United States, and of those, 80 were single mother homes. Now, this is not just limited to those in the secular arena, but it's also those here in our scope of Christendom. Pew study showed in 2020 that children from the Christian faith came from homes of single parents more than any other religious sector in the world. And of those, most of those homes were single mothers. Women had more tendency to be a single parent than Christian single fathers. Single parent families, especially single mother homes, they lack the resources that a married or a two-parent family would have. And those lack of resources create different stressors and hardship that lead to psychological and mental exacerbation, including stress, depression, anxiety, mental health disorders, and diminished well-being. It also produces negative attitudes with why somebody becomes a single parent and their state of single motherhood. Somebody's state of mind, their wellness, their health is all tied to their ability to function and be successful in life. Now, when we look at what it means to have these different stressors, when we look at physical stressors, we're looking at nutrition, dietary, fitness, wellness. When we look at mental, it's the ability to think or process and use information. Emotional deals with how we feel or manage and express our emotions. Social relates to how we exchange and interact with other people. And psychological brings it all together in the way we function, how we make decisions, how we develop habits and actions for our course of life. So, this research lends to add to the field. Most of the research that is out there focuses on the disadvantages of being a single parent. It focuses on the detriment, the stress, the hardships, but it doesn't look at the contingent factors that are necessary to build resilience to overcome adversity. So this research lends to the field in the way of providing a solution through a Christian-based psychoeducational program. Now, there's research that asserts that having faith-based solutions will allow one to become more successful because it ties to their values and their belief system. This research was based on psychological theories of cognitive behavior theory and the relational emotive behavior therapy. Cognitive behavior therapy it focuses on providing treatment for mental illnesses and hardships and anxieties and disorders that lends to changing the thinking. We want to disrupt negative thinkings and thought patterns in order to produce a better outcome in life, better habits, change those habits. Relational emotive behavior therapy, REBT, is a form of cognitive behavior therapy. It deals with 5 principles. It follows the ABC model. The model has changed over the years to include DE, and what that says is you look at your antecedents. These are things that happen to you in life. You become a single parent, you get divorced, or you have a child out of wedlock, you get left by that partner. That's an antecedent. Your belief is how that event has caused you to be who you are. So now, well, I can't succeed in life because I got a parent on my own. I can't make it and go to school and get a doctorate because I'm a single parent with 2 kids. But the consequences deal with the emotions that erupt from that negative thinking. So we want to come in with disputations of those beliefs. What activities can we do to analyze your current situation, and what strategies and new habits can you develop in order to develop more effective new beliefs about the situation. In addition, using psychoeducational groups offers the opportunity for those who participate to become informed about themselves, how they relate to others, and doing it in a group setting helps to have that support system. It allows for you to see other people's point of view and to allow it to say, well, I'm not in this alone. There's also a scriptural basis in this research. Psalms 55:22 says to cast your cares upon the Lord. Philippians 4:6-7 says, do not be anxious for anything. A lot of the stressors that single mothers face, it's almost as if they're playing Superwoman. They don't lean into the strength of the Lord. But the Bible helps us in encouraging us to lean into God's strength. Don't try to do it on our own. And don't get into fear and worry about how you're going to take care of your kids, how you're going to pay the bills, how you're going to do life. Lean into that strength. Be anxious for nothing, but give God thanks in all things. It also supports the rationale for counseling. Proverbs 15:22 says, without counsel, purposes are disappointed, but in the multitude of counselors, they are established. Psychotherapy and counseling practices are necessary for that inner healing. It's necessary for wholeness and change to take place. But in order to be effective, it must have biblical application. So let's look at the design of the proposed program. This program was set to provide a holistic solution for single mothers. You're going to explore, process, and express those feelings of being a single parent. How did I get here? Why am I feeling this way? What can I do to change my attitude about it? The program addresses self-care needs and having balance with the responsibilities of parenting, as well as addressing those needs for oneself. This program seeks to help parents develop coping skills, as well as reduce the feelings of stress, anxiety, and bitterness related to single parenting. It also serves to teach single mothers how to allow themselves to have personal relationships, social interaction, so they're not caught up in just being a single mother, but they give themselves a well-rounded approach to doing life. It'll also help them to develop positive behavior discipline plans, because a lot of times when single mothers are stressed, they have a tendency, and research asserts this, to take it out on the children. And so that, in turn, develops negative practices, habits, and attitudes in the children. And then it reinforces the need to constantly be in a place of holistic and healthy well-being. This program is open to all single mothers, ages 18 and older, of all races, ethnicities, faith, denominations, education, and income levels. Now, for the purpose of this study, the single mother definition was expanded not just to include those who have children and don't have a spouse, but it may also include those who may be cohabitating with a parent or a married mother who may be separated from her spouse or partner. This program is designed to meet the needs for 10 to 20 women. Anything over that would not allow successful participation. Some members may get lost in the process of doing the activities. It is preferred that there's an even number for the dyads. Dyads are those partner activities when you're in a group and you have to discuss and share in the activities, and then you go into your rounds, which you'll be sharing out what you discussed with that partner. So it's more beneficial if it's an even number, but if there are participants that come and it makes the number uneven, we'll include those. Have a three-way conversation and dialogue. The program is set to be 12 months long. Research has asserted that it takes about 90 days to develop a habit. So in order to give that 3-month time window, it'll allow for mothers to have a new mindset and develop new skills and habits that will allow them to be productive as parents. The meeting will take place once a week and for an hour and a half. That will give an opportunity not only for the moms to get the training and the strategies that they need to be successful, but it'll also allow some time for fellowship and social interaction with those in their support group. Now, the meeting can be face-to-face or virtual. A part of this study was to assess which meeting format would be preferred to offer it in the future for single mothers. They would need a program workbook that's developed by the facilitator, and if they're meeting virtually, it'll be an electronic form provided, as well as a paper copy. They'll also need some type of journaling and writing utensils during this time. If they are willing to participate in both formats, they must commit to participating in the group for 12 weeks. It's a closed group meeting. You can't come in on the next week and catch up because the activities are progressive and they build on each other, so one would need to go throughout the duration of the program in order to see success for what they're trying to achieve as single mothers. They must show up on time for sessions and be willing to commit to stay for the entirety of the time and complete the practical application challenges that are implemented each week. Now, for those in the virtual format, they would need to have internet connectivity and some type of device where they can do video conferencing through Zoom or Teams. So, in order to assess if this program would be successful, the research looked at 4 questions and then did some correlational studies. The questions were, how is being a single mother affecting overall wellness? That was an opportunity for single mothers themselves to provide their own opinion into their perceived wellness needs. How does practicing faith and religion affect overall single mom wellness? What are the barriers to participating in the psychoeducational support group? And how does integrating Christian-based values affect the likelihood of single mothers' participation in the group? Now, in this research, there were a few relationships that were assessed, one with the employment type and meeting format, how looking at those people who said that they're Christian, if that would make them more prone to participating, and the income levels versus the registration cost options. This was a mixed methods approach, qualitative and quantitative. There was an electronic survey that was sent out. It gained that statistical data quantitatively, but there was an open-ended question that allowed single mothers to express their opinions on how their faith is related to them being single parents and their single parent, their mental and emotional wellness. This was also a correlational study. As I said, we looked at the different relationships between different variables, and it is applied research. Applied research says, I'm providing a solution to an issue or a concern. There were 46 people who participated in this study. Again, it was sent out using Google Forms. There was a digital statement of consent. The survey was split up into 3 parts: informed consent, 20 demographic questions, and 14 demographic questions and 6 feasibility studies. In that informed consent, it provided background information about the study, the risks and benefits for participating, privacy information, and then there was a statement of consent. So in lieu of normal research where you have to get participant signatures, their statement of consent provided a digital signature, and they were sent an email copy of their responses for their records. In order to analyze the data, statistical analysis software was used, IBM software, SPSS, statistical package for social science, as well as Microsoft Excel. Now, let's look at what the data said. When we look at how being a single mother affects wellness, most respondents, 52%, said it makes it more difficult. When you look at how practicing your faith and religion affected, as I hypothesized, 39 respondents out of the 46 said that it makes it easier, having religion, having that faith and spirituality. And looking at the barriers to participation, the top 5 were the ability to actively participate in the closed group every week for 12 weeks. Equally at 34.8%, face-to-face format if they had to drive 30 to 45 minutes away, and a registration fee of $76 to $100 was the second barrier. A lack of childcare during meetings came in at 23.9%, and the ability to meet for an hour and a half came in as the 5th barrier. And looking at the correlations, how does integrating Christian-based values affect the likelihood? The respondents said, 50% of respondents said that it will make it more likely that they will participate, while 41.3% said that it wouldn't affect them in any way. And I was shocked by those results because I expected that those who profess to have Christian faith would be more prone to join a Christian-based psychoeducational group. But what the research tells me is that for these respondents, it doesn't matter about incorporating those values as long as they get the support that they need, they're willing to participate. Looking at the employment status versus how you would meet. I hypothesized that those who work full-time, part-time, or are self-employed will probably want to meet virtually versus having to go drive face-to-face after work. And the data showed that in support of that hypothesis, that 70%, 29 out of the 41 people who said that they would, that said that they would prefer a virtual format and they work, 70% of those people would rather meet virtually. And then I looked at those who had a higher income and their responses, and versus those who had a lower income and what they would say regarding how much they're willing to pay. And I looked at 2 income brackets because in our demographics, most of the single mothers made $45,000 and higher. So looking at those who made under $45,000, 81% said that they would be willing to pay $50 or less, and those who made $35,000 or less and chose $50 or less as a cost that they would be willing to pay was 85%. That supported my hypothesis because in doing this, wanting to propose a program, there are costs, administrative costs, costs for printing, costs for workbooks, but as single parents, that's a financial hardship for them. So I wanted to see what they would say about how much they were willing to pay and put a value on the program. So I made a few assumptions in the research looking at our 3 things I really want to highlight. The single mother opinions on their wellness. There were 2 major things that came out in the qualitative analysis, and that was having a Christian faith allow them to cope with life and cope as being a single parent, as well as having a Christian faith was grounding them. That was the anchoring thing that motivated them to keep going on. When looking at the support group meeting day and time preferences, I analyzed that those who chose times that were later on in the evening was probably attributed to the fact that they needed to have that space and time without the distraction of the children. If I had to do extra research, I would see if childcare and meals were provided during the sessions, if we had a face-to-face, because research supports more of a face-to-face meeting. If single mothers had those resources provided, how much more likely would they be to participate? What would mitigate those top 5 barriers that they said would prevent them from being a part of the research? In conclusion, this study highlighted that there is a need for...
There's your time. Let's give her a round.